I once went on what I thought was a harmless friendship van life trip, and I ended up alone in a forest with a man who totally lost his marbles. I have ignored quite a few red flags, and looking back, I cannot believe I did that. Hello, I'm Jana, I'm 41 and I live in a van. And I haven't been on a date since I was about 35. And yet somehow I still occasionally find myself in weird situations with men. This happened about 2 years ago when I first got in Perth, just before I started my mining job. I didn't know anyone in Perth except for my friend Gabi, who also worked in the mines, but she also studied and she had very little time to hang out with me. I found this little park by the Swan River where there were trees, there were toilets, even cold showers, so it was a great spot for somebody living in a van. And even though overnight parking was technically prohibited there, a lot of people actually slept there, and so did I from time to time. One day, a group of youngish people arrived in their vans and they started chatting with me. And since I was new in Perth, of course, I was very much open to new friendships. The next day, I went to get my mining medical. And when I got back, one of the guys was still there in his large white van. And he asked me whether I would like to go for a walk around the park, and I happily agreed. And this is where the story starts. He seemed interested in all spiritual and supernatural things, which I'm also interested in, and I rarely get to discuss it with somebody in real life, so I was quite excited that we can talk about weird stuff like, I don't know, consciousness, quantum jumping, ghosts, just, He also told me he used to be vegan. He even was a vegan activist, the type of vegan who breaks into a slaughterhouse to try to rescue animals. And while this is not something I would do, I do kind of understand why somebody would feel the urge to do it. See the number I have tattooed on my arm? You sometimes ask about it. It's actually an animal rights symbol. And he had that number branded on his body, I mean, like with an hot iron, like animals. So it was rather shocking to me when he told me that right now he is not vegan anymore because it's not convenient and he has to eat what he can afford. Like, I couldn't wrap my mind around how somebody goes from breaking into slaughterhouses rescuing animals to eating meat again. But hey, you do you. I am friends with a lot of people who eat meat. I wasn't looking for a soulmate. We do not have to agree on everything to be friends. He also mentioned that he had 2 kids, and immediately I thought he's gonna be a deadbeat father. And maybe that was unfair. I admit I don't have enough information, but my impression was that he was not really working. He said he only worked during festivals. He was helping to build the stages. Now, how many festivals are there in Western Australia or even in the whole of Australia? I mean, that's a great van lifestyle for somebody like, for example, me. But if you have other human beings that you should be taking care of, maybe that's not sufficient. I don't know. But again, I was looking for a friend. I don't have to agree with everything. Then we talked about movies, and that was the time when I just recently discovered The Railway Man. I'm sorry, I cannot say railway. It's such a tongue twister for me. But that's to this day one of my favorite movies. So I was telling him about that, and he said he would love to see it. And I said, yeah, I think I have it on my tablet. And he said, well, let's watch it when we get back from the walk. And I'm like, yeah, why not? So when we got back, I went to my van to fetch the tablet, and he said he's going to take a shower. Which I thought it was a bit strange. It was like 2 p.m. I was hoping he didn't think that's gonna be some Netflix and chill. But at the same time, I must admit he did not smell great, so I thought maybe a shower will do him good. But the issue was when he came back, he smelled exactly the same. So I was a bit perplexed. I didn't understand. Did he just wash his junk, or did he not own a soap? Anyway, we decided to watch the movie in his van because his van was much bigger than mine. And when he opened the van, suddenly it was pretty clear why he smelled like that, because the whole van smelled like that, kind of like a damp carpet that you forgot about. Musty, sweaty. It was awful. It was really bad. I watched a video recently where a guy claimed that no Vanlifer will ever tell you about the smell of these vans. Yeah, like every van smells bad. I would like to say I have been in many vans and they usually do not smell. Mine doesn't smell, Leanne's van doesn't smell, but these guys, let's call him Josh. Josh's van definitely smelled really bad, but I didn't want to be rude, so I perched myself on the very edge, right by the open door, so that I have enough of fresh air. And we watched the movie. And after that movie, I made some excuse and went back to my van to escape the scent chamber. The next day, I went snorkeling around a shipwreck, and I got a message from him, and he asked whether he could join me. And I said, why not? So he came along and we played Catan. Of course, he did know Catan. Like, what? And we talked some more spiritual stuff. But then he started to turn the subject toward the bedroom stuff. And I thought that was a good opportunity to tell him about my celibacy. I told him that while I was very much open to friendship, if he was expecting anything like that, that's not going to happen, to which he was very shocked at first, and then like half jokingly said, well, that was a waste of my time. And when I was not laughing, he looked at me and he goes like, you are serious about that? And I said, yes, of course, I'm totally serious. And with that, he gathered his things, he slammed the door of his van, and he left. And I was just amused. I was innerly laughing because I have never ever came across somebody who would behave like this. I talked about it with my bestie the other day, how lucky we are because we are tall, and weak men seem not to really approach tall girls. Lots of our friends have a lot of terrible stories, but not us. I mean, until now. And that's the reason why the story didn't end here as it should. Purely because of my inexperience with abusive and manipulative men. Because 5 minutes later, he came back and he apologized for his behavior. He explained that he likes me, he feels attracted to me, and if that's not an option, then it sucks, and he doesn't want to get his heart broken. And then he left again. So I thought, that's it, we are not gonna see each other again because we want different things, and that's okay. But the next day he messaged me again. He said he thought about it and he's okay with it. He doesn't want to lose the friendship. And he invited me for a trip, and he said he's going to show me some of his stealth spots. If you live in a van, you know secret spots are worth gold, because people generally don't like to share them, because once too many people know about them, that's usually when the spot gets ruined. And so I made the fatal reasoning, okay, he apologized, he thought about it, he reflected. Maybe he behaved childish yesterday, but he seems to be over it. And so I went on the trip with him because, to be honest, I was feeling a little bit lonely. I was new to Perth, I didn't have friends, and I did enjoy our conversations. And we had 2 really lovely days. We were swimming, cooking, walking, talking, watching movies, reading books. It was awesome. And then somehow we ended up somewhere near Margaret River in a forest. in a remote place. There was nobody else but us, and we just watched the movie doing Vipassana. It's about meditation retreats being offered inside Indian prisons. Josh had done Vipassana as well. Of course he did, even though he said he left after only 4 days. And then, after that, his personality turned around 180 degrees. He started attacking my celibacy, calling it religious BS, even though he knew very well that I'm not religious, saying that I must think I'm so much better than anyone else and that mating is the only good thing on this earth that we could be doing, and he's never ever going to give it up. And at that moment I realized the huge mistake I made. Like, this guy already showed me once that he lacks self-control, and I still ended up alone with him in a forest, and it became so obvious to me that if he decided to force his way, like, there wouldn't be much I could do. And I was really angry with myself at that moment. Like, how dumb can you be? Then he looked at me like dead serious in the eye and says, so you do not feel at least a little bit attracted to me? And at that moment I only felt disgust, but at the same time I didn't want to anger him. I didn't know what could the outcome be, and so I tried to soften the blow. I was like, no, but I really don't feel attracted to anyone. And with that he packed and retreated into his van, and I quickly gathered my stuff. I got into my van and I locked it, and I was never ever gonna go near him ever again. He said he was going to sleep even though it was still daylight. And eventually he drove off, to my huge relief, and I thought, that's it, done, dusted, we will never talk to each other ever again. And then next day I got a text message. How was your day? What? I was just like, mate, lose my number. Don't text me ever again. But a few days later I started receiving messages again. I have actually lost my WhatsApp history when I switched to new phone, which I deeply regret because that would have been gold. But I made a screenshot of his last messages to me just before he got blocked. Here you go. Feel free to pause the video and have a read. What made me laugh the most was that he still called himself an enlightened being while demanding I sleep with him. It never occurred to him I might simply be put off by him. He interpreted my lack of interest as an ideological problem to be corrected. If you are curious what video he sent me in that link, it was this one. And honestly, the lesson of this story is, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. No benefit of the doubt, no accepting apologies the first time. Loneliness can make us overlook or rationalize quite a few things that we would have normally not put up with. Looking back, I see quite a few patterns that I did not have the language for. For example, mirroring. Mirroring? When somebody seems uncannily aligned with your interests. Entitlement. Oh, that was a waste of my time. Boundary testing. Pushing after I had clearly said no. Hot and cold swings. Anger, apology, charm, anger, and maybe the weirdest one, reframing rejection as some defect in me. I must have been spiritually confused and in need of enlightenment, while honestly the smell by itself was a reason enough. I do feel a little foolish sharing this, but maybe that's exactly why I should share it. Because manipulative people rarely show up with a sign on their forehead. Sometimes they show up sounding charming, spiritual, interesting, even kind. And people who are straightforward themselves often don't immediately recognize pretense, because deception is not how they operate. That doesn't make them stupid, it makes them human. And yes, since then my policy is simple. First crazy scene, I'm out. Now, please make me feel better in the comments and let me know if you ever ignored red flags because you wanted to give someone the benefit of the doubt. How did it turn out? Would you do it again? Thank you for watching and I will see you next time. Bye!
Stay right here.